Let's get right into it. Number 10. Electric obedience. Imagine you're sitting in a plain room, flipping switches, minding your business, when someone in a lab coat tells you to shock another human being. Not a metaphorical shock. An actual, this could ruin your day, permanently shock. And here's the twist. Most people didn't even hesitate. This was the Milgram Experiment, and it basically exposed the uncomfortable truth that your moral compass has a snooze button. Participants were told they were helping with a learning study. In reality, they were instructed to deliver increasingly painful electric shocks to a stranger every time that stranger got an answer wrong. The screams were fake, the pain wasn't real, but the people flipping the switches didn't know that. What's disturbing isn't that a few sadists went wild with the shock button. It's that ordinary, polite, tax-paying adults kept going because someone authoritative told them to. The lab coat might as well have been a magic spell. Please continue. That's all it took. No threats, no bribes, just calm instructions and the implication that you're responsible if you stop. Your brain loves outsourcing responsibility. If someone higher up the social ladder says, "I've got this," your conscience clocks out early. It's the same mental shortcut that makes people say, "I was just following orders," as if guilt respects corporate hierarchy. Milgram didn't just test obedience. He showed how fragile morality becomes when authority enters the room. History took notes. This experiment reshaped ethics boards, psychological research rules, and the way we understand atrocities carried out by normal people. Basically, your brain will electrocute a stranger if it thinks the manager approved it. Number 9. Learned helplessness. Picture this. You're trapped in a situation where nothing you do makes it better. You try, you fail, you try again, still fail. Eventually, you stop trying at all. Congratulations. Your brain has just learned helplessness. This concept came from experiments where animals were exposed to unavoidable discomfort. No matter what they did, they couldn't escape it. Later, when escape was possible, many didn't even attempt it. They just sat there, accepting misery like it was part of the furniture. Humans do this too. All the time. Different species, same depressing software bug. If your brain gets enough evidence that effort equals disappointment, it updates its internal settings. Motivation drops. Curiosity dies. Hope gets quietly escorted out of the building. You don't stop because you're weak. You stop because your brain is trying to conserve energy in a world it believes is rigged. This experiment permanently changed how we understand depression, trauma, and abuse. It explained why people stay in bad jobs, toxic relationships, or impossible situations even when exits exist. When your past taught you that exits were fake, your brain stops looking for doors. The truly disturbing part? Learned helplessness doesn't need cruelty to start. Repeated small failures, constant criticism, or environments where effort isn't rewarded can slowly train your brain into giving up. So when someone says, "Why don't they just leave?" the answer is simple. Their brain already ran the simulation and decided it wasn't worth it. Basically, your mind can gaslight itself into surrender. Number 8. The Stanford Prison Nightmare. Give college students fake power and a hallway, and apparently you get a psychological horror film. The Stanford Prison Experiment took a bunch of perfectly average young men and randomly assigned them to be either guards or prisoners in a mock jail set up in a university basement. No real criminals, no real crimes, just vibes and some clipboards. Within days, things spiraled. The guards didn't just role-play authority. They leaned into it like method actors who forgot the script was fake. They humiliated prisoners, deprived them of sleep, invented arbitrary punishments. Meanwhile, the prisoners started breaking down emotionally. Some had panic attacks. Some begged to leave. And here's the kicker. Everyone involved knew it was an experiment. This study became infamous because it suggested that people don't need to be evil to do terrible things. Sometimes all they need is a role, a costume, and a system that backs them up. When you're told, "This is who you are now," your brain starts editing itself to match the character description. Social psychology calls this de-individuation, when personal identity dissolves into group roles. It's why crowds get wild, uniforms feel powerful, and comment sections turn into gladiator arenas. Once you stop seeing yourself as me and start seeing yourself as guard, officer, moderator, or anonymous user, your moral boundaries get blurry. The experiment was so ethically chaotic it had to be shut down early. It reshaped research standards and forced psychology to ask uncomfortable questions about how much of our behavior is situational. Translation: under the right conditions, your personality is less solid identity and more customizable avatar. Basically, your inner villain might just be waiting for a name tag. Number 7. Little Albert. Let's talk about how to accidentally invent trauma. In the early 1900s, a baby named Albert was shown a white rat. First, he was chill about it. Cute, fuzzy animal? Sure. Then researchers paired the rat with a loud, terrifying noise. Bang. Baby cries. Rat appears again. Bang. Crying intensifies. Repeat. Eventually, Albert didn't need the noise anymore. The rat alone triggered fear. Not only that, his fear generalized. White rabbits, fluffy dogs, even Santa's beard became nightmare fuel. That's classical conditioning in action. Your brain is basically a pattern-making machine with trust issues. If two things happen together enough times, your mind glues them into a single package deal. White fluffy thing equals danger. No logic required. This experiment was groundbreaking because it showed how phobias can form. You don't need a rational explanation. You just need your nervous system to link two events and decide, never again. The disturbing part? Albert was never properly deconditioned. We don't even know what happened to him long-term. He became a footnote in psychology and possibly a lifelong hater of winter accessories. Today, we understand that fears, especially in childhood, can be built from surprisingly small experiences. One bad event plus one neutral object equals your future irrational panic at balloons, or dogs, or public speaking. Your amygdala doesn't care about nuance, cares about survival, and it would rather overreact 1,000 times than miss one real threat. So if your heart rate spikes at something harmless, just remember, your brain once decided Santa might kill you. Basically, anxiety is your nervous system playing connect the dots with permanent marker. Number 6. The monster study. Nothing says scientific progress quite like emotionally scarring children in the name of speech therapy. In the 1930s, a group of researchers wanted to test a theory. Could you create stuttering through psychological pressure alone? So they gathered orphans because apparently ethics were optional, and divided them into groups. One group received positive reinforcement about their speech. The other group was told repeatedly that they were speaking incorrectly, that they were developing a stutter, that something was wrong with them. Here's the nightmare fuel. Some of the children who were perfectly fluent started to stumble. They grew anxious, self-conscious, afraid to speak. Their confidence cracked under the weight of suggestion. This experiment was later nicknamed the monster study, which feels almost generous. What it revealed, though, was chillingly powerful. Your brain is absurdly sensitive to labels. Tell someone often enough that they're flawed, broken, awkward, incompetent, and their behavior may begin to bend to fit the script. Psychologists call this the self-fulfilling prophecy. Expectations subtly shape performance. Teachers' assumptions affect students' grades. Parents' criticisms echo in adult insecurities. Even your own internal voice can nudge your behavior in whatever direction it predicts. Your brain wants consistency. If it hears "you're bad at this" on repeat, it starts scanning for evidence to confirm it. And when it finds that evidence, even tiny mistakes, it amplifies them. The study permanently altered how we think about child development, language disorders, and the sheer psychological weight of criticism. It also stands as a monument to why research ethics boards now exist. Basically, words don't just describe reality. Sometimes they build it, and sometimes they quietly wreck it. Number 5. The Bystander Effect. You're walking down a street. Someone collapses. There are 20 other people around. Surely someone's going to help, right? Statistically, maybe not. The bystander effect came into focus after researchers studied cases where people failed to intervene in emergencies when others were present. The more witnesses there are, the less likely any single person is to act. Because everyone assumes someone else will. Your brain runs a quick calculation. If this were really serious, someone would already be doing something. When no one moves, you interpret the stillness as a cue. Social proof kicks in. If everyone else is calm, maybe you should be too. Responsibility diffuses like a drop of ink in water. Instead of feeling 100% accountable, you feel 1/20th accountable. And 1/20th urgency doesn't exactly light a fire under you. Researchers staged fake emergencies, smoke-filling rooms, people pretending to seize, and consistently found that individuals alone reacted faster than those in groups. Alone, your brain says, "This is on me." In a crowd, it whispers, "Not my department." This phenomenon changed how emergency response systems are designed. It's why CPR training teaches you to point at a specific person and say, "You, call 911. Specificity breaks the diffusion spell. The disturbing part isn't that people are heartless. It's that your mind is socially wired to take cues from the herd, even when someone needs help. So next time you're in a crowd and something feels off, remember, everyone else's hesitation might just be waiting for yours to end. Basically, your sense of responsibility is surprisingly bad at sharing. Number 4. The Asch conformity trap. Imagine sitting in a room where the correct answer is painfully obvious. Like, the sky is blue obvious. Now imagine everyone around you confidently saying the sky is actually neon green. One by one, calmly, casually, like you're the weird one for even hesitating. That was the Asch Conformity Experiment. Participants were shown simple line comparisons. One line was clearly longer than the others. The answer wasn't philosophical. It wasn't interpretive. It was geometry for toddlers. But when actors in the room intentionally gave the wrong answer, a shocking number of participants went along with it. Not because they were confused. Not because they were unintelligent. But because being the lone dissenter feels psychologically dangerous. Your brain hates social rejection more than it hates being wrong. Evolutionarily speaking, being kicked out of the tribe meant you didn't survive long enough to argue about line lengths. So when everyone else agrees on something, even something obviously false, your nervous system starts sweating. There are two forces at work here. Normative influence, you want to fit in. Informational influence, you assume maybe the group knows something you don't. So you override your own eyeballs. This experiment permanently reshaped our understanding of peer pressure, groupthink, and why misinformation spreads like gossip at a family reunion. It also explains how entire societies can slide into collective delusion while individuals privately think, "This seems wrong." The most unsettling part? When just one other person in the room gave the correct answer, conformity dropped dramatically. One ally is enough to restore your spine. Basically, your brain would rather look wrong with friends than right alone. Number 3. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study. Now we step into territory that isn't just psychologically disturbing. It's morally catastrophic. For 40 years, hundreds of black men with syphilis were told they were receiving medical treatment. They weren't. Researchers deliberately withheld treatment, even after penicillin became widely available, so they could observe the natural progression of the disease. Let that sink in. Treatment existed. It worked. And it was intentionally denied. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't sloppy methodology. It was systemic exploitation disguised as science. The consequences were devastating. Preventable deaths, families affected, generational trauma, and a legacy of mistrust toward medical institutions that still echoes today. This study changed history not because it revealed a new scientific principle, but because it forced a reckoning. It led to major reforms in research ethics, informed consent laws, and the creation of institutional review boards. Participants now have legal rights. Transparency became mandatory. Oversight became non-negotiable. Psychologically, it also exposed something uncomfortable about institutions. When authority structures lack accountability, moral boundaries erode quickly. Individuals inside systems can rationalize harm if the system normalizes it. Trust, once broken on that scale, doesn't repair easily. Calcifies into caution. Disturbing experiments sometimes reveal truths about human cognition. This one revealed truths about power, prejudice, and the catastrophic cost of dehumanization. Basically, science without ethics isn't progress. It's just cruelty with paperwork. Number 2, MKUltra. Imagine signing up for what you think is a harmless psychological study and accidentally becoming a government guinea pig in a real-life spy thriller. MKUltra was a covert CIA program that ran from the 1950s into the 1970s. Its goal? Figure out how to control human behavior. Not influence, not persuade, control. Because apparently someone watched too many mind control movies and thought, we can probably do that. Participants, some volunteers, some very much not, were given LSD and other psychoactive substances, sometimes without their knowledge. Some were subjected to sensory deprivation. Others endured extreme psychological stress. The idea was to see whether you could break down someone's mental defenses and rebuild them into, well, something programmable. Spoiler, the human brain is not a USB drive. The experiments were chaotic, unethical, and often conducted without informed consent. In several cases, people had no idea they'd been drugged. Imagine going about your day and suddenly reality melts, and it turns out it was part of a classified research project. Psychologically, MKUltra exposed both the limits and fragility of the mind. Yes, drugs can distort perception. Yes, stress can break people down. But the idea of clean, reliable mind control turned out to be fantasy wrapped in paranoia. What it actually revealed was how institutions, when operating in secrecy, can justify almost anything under the banner of national security. When oversight disappears, morality gets blurry. When details of the program surfaced years later, public trust took another hit. Regulations tightened. Ethical standards hardened. The fantasy of behavioral puppeteering lost some of its shine. The truly unsettling part? The desire for control never really goes away. It just changes outfits. Basically, history proved that you can scramble a brain, but you can't install new software like it's an operating system update. Number 1. The atomic silence. This one isn't a psychology lab with clipboards. It's an experiment that happened at a planetary scale. The detonation of the first atomic bombs wasn't just a military event. It was the ultimate scientific proof of concept. A terrifying demonstration that theoretical physics could reshape reality in seconds. When the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the world learned something irreversible. Humanity now had the power to annihilate itself. The Manhattan Project involved brilliant scientists racing to unlock nuclear fission. Many justified their work as necessary to end a global war. Some later expressed deep regret. Others defended it. But once the genie was out, it didn't go back in. Psychologically, this moment altered the collective human mind. For the first time, extinction wasn't just myth or divine punishment. It was mechanical, man-made. A button could do it. The Cold War that followed became a decades-long experiment in mutually assured destruction. Entire populations lived under the quiet understanding that civilization rested on fragile diplomacy and steady hands. This wasn't just a disturbing experiment. It permanently shifted how humans view power, responsibility, and survival. It forced ethics, science, and politics into the same room and locked the door. The atomic age didn't just change warfare. It changed our species' sense of itself. We became capable of engineering our own end. And that realization sits quietly in the background of modern life, like a smoke detector you hope never goes off. Basically, humanity discovered it could press delete on itself, and then had to learn how not to. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.